Hello, everybody. Welcome. All right. So, my name is Hector Marquez, and I am here to talk to you about my creative journey. I love that all of you are gathered here at the grid to engage a lot of these topics and conversations of creativity. And so, I want to share a little bit about my story in three parts. And the first chapter, I'm calling it Creativity Takes Courage. Second chapter, I'm going to call it Creativity Heals Wounds. And then in my final act, I will title that Creativity Pays It Forward. So let's start with the first part. How does creativity take courage? Well, as a young boy, I always was fascinated with clothing and colors and fabric and Barbies. I know that sounds kind of odd, but I just loved my sister's Barbies. And so from early on I would help her organize her little closets, and I would help her comb her little Barbie's hair, and I was a child myself, but I quickly learned that that was not necessarily acceptable in my family because it didn't follow gender norms that my family believed in, and I learned that very quickly, but it didn't stop me. From an early age, I learned to hide, and I would literally take my sister's Barbies and these spare socks, and I would hide under these sheets, and I would get a flashlight, and I would start sewing dresses on these Barbies. And I mean, talk about courage, right? When you knew you weren't supposed to do something because you'd get a scolding from your father, yet you believed in it so much that you did it anyways. You found a way to do it. And the reason why I bring that up first is because years later, I became a teacher. I had students just like all of you. And 7 years into it, I experienced another moment of courage where I needed to dig in for courage in order to manifest my creative destiny. And 7 years into teaching, I was having a conversation with my principal, and we were just talking about dreams and how everybody has dreams, and her dream was to be a designer. And I told her, so was mine. Like, I had this dream inside of me to design fashion. And then I realized, oh my goodness, in a few years, I will be sitting on the other side, and I will be telling someone how I had a dream, but I never pursued it. And so the following week, I submitted a letter of resignation, and I went to fashion school. I studied under fabulous, fabulous professors who are really well known around the world for their work in fashion, and I got to gain their knowledge and their skills. And I remember one day, I was working under Gianni Versace's studio director, and he told me to scrap a whole collection, to just throw it away because it was no good. And I cried. I cried because it hurt that I had put in so much work into this creative project, and I was being told it's no good. Thereafter, though, I worked up the courage to do it again, to try again. And so courage as a creative, I feel, is so important. And as you find your way into, creative projects or even just life situations, you always have to remember that courage is what makes things worth your while. If you don't take that risk, it's never going to happen. It's never going to manifest in your life. And so that was the first chapter of Creativity as Courage in my life. Another part of my life that I wanted to speak to you all about was creativity as a healer, creativity that heals wounds. And this story takes me back to my high school days. I was a freshman in high school, you know, go freshman. And I had this crazy idea. I'd never done theater. My parents never really allowed us to do many extracurricular activities, but there was a flyer for this musical, Grease. It was Grease, the musical, and I really thought like, hey, I'm gonna try this. I've never done this before. I think I could be a good actor. I'm kind of funny sometimes, so let's try it out. And quickly I discovered that I loved the music. And there was this one role that I just fell in love with. It was Duty. He sang this song on a guitar called Those Magic Changes. And I must have practiced for 3 entire weeks. And I know that's not a long time, but for teenagers, a teenage boy especially, that seems like an eternity. And I just rehearsed. I rehearsed those magic changes. And when it came time to audition, I was feeling myself. I was like, I'm going to kill this. I'm going to go in there and they're going to be like, wow, we just discovered the next big thing in musical theater. And so after the audition, I went home and, I said, okay, well, like whatever happens. I took a risk and I am doing something new. So when all the titles came out, all the roles, I scanned for my name. Of course, the main roles are always on top, and my name was at the bottom. I didn't get that role, but I was a background singer slash dancer slash person in the back, and that was good enough for me. So we got started with rehearsals, and it was great because at the time I had this afro. I know you. Now I have no hair, but I had a big hair, and so they were able to like slick it back, and I was in Grease. And there was a moment in rehearsals when the choir director stopped everyone. And he said, something is off here. Something does not sound right. And it was during that song where it goes, Grease, lightning, lightning, when you start the dance. And I thought, oh my God, like somebody's really messing up our flow, like what's going on? And so the choir director asks everybody to sing, the progression. And, he's checking here and saying, okay, you're good, and giving feedback there. Okay, not bad, like keep it up. And when he got to me, granted, everybody was on stage, and he looked at me square in the eye after I did it, and he said, can you lip sync for the whole musical? And it devastated me. It broke my heart. I didn't know. I couldn't sing. I didn't know. But I believed in myself so much that I kept doing it. And for 4 years, I kept rehearsing. I kept auditioning. I kept getting lead roles. Not singing roles, but I did get roles, and I kept at it, and I worked really hard. Fast forward, a few years later, I ended up becoming a teacher. And as a teacher, I realized that a lot of my students did not have access to any arts whatsoever. No music program, no theater program, no dance. And I really believed that through the arts, we begin to close that education gap, and we allow students to really discover who they are. And I believe that because it happened to me. Auditioning for Grease, even though I didn't get that role, did so many wonderful things for me. Obviously, it crushed me, but just a little part of me. It really watered the rest of me and allowed this wonderful garden to grow within me. So then, years later as a teacher, I started developing theater programs for students. And those theater programs still stand up and down California. I would write these scripts and I would direct these plays, and I would actually make costumes for my students, and we would just put on productions. We would just put on productions, and it would be it would be a fantastic experience that those kids would never forget. And it all came full circle, and this is why I'm saying it heals, because 11 years after I graduated high school, I went back to another Grease performance, and guess who I sat next to? That choir director. And I was able to look him in the face like he did 11 years ago and tell him, you know, your words really crushed me, but I am so glad that I kept that fire and that love for art alive, because although I couldn't sing on a stage, I have since opened the opportunity so hundreds, if not thousands of students could now sing on stages. And that was the moment where I realized, you know, creativity has a way to heal wounds that are inflicted on us internally, right? Because not everybody has the right words to say, and I don't blame that choir director. He was just doing his job. But as a teenage boy dealing with insecurities, it meant a lot to me in a negative way. And so I just would love to put that out there for you all to remember, like, words matter, the way you talk to people matter. But also, you know, when those things, those negative comments are made towards you, don't let that stop you. Don't ever let that slow you down, because somehow you can turn that into good. And then you now are in a position to give positive messages like I am doing today. All right, so chapter 3. So that's chapter 1, creativity takes courage. Chapter 2, creativity heals wounds. And finally, creativity pays it forward. I have been in the creative world as a arts education consultant, as a fashion designer, as a theater writer, director. But I always come back to this sense that I was afforded opportunities to grow in a creative space to the point where I feel empowered to give back and to give messages of encouragement back to people who may be struggling in some area of their either creative space or their personal life. And I feel like the arts really allows me to do that. And today, you know, I don't know how many of you are out there, but I know there's at least one person out there who's thinking, well, you know, maybe I'm not good enough, or I don't have the skills, or my school doesn't have that program. And I'm here to tell you that while that may be true, there's one thing I've learned about creativity, and that is that creativity has its own schedule. And as long as you don't give up and you're willing to put in the work, your moment will come. Your moment will absolutely come. That door that you've been waiting for will open. It's just a matter of time. And so for anybody who's out there sitting, I don't know, in a desk, maybe you're in Pomona or Long Beach, and you're thinking, you know, why am I here? Why am I sitting here listening to this guy talk about creativity? And that's for this message that you're not running late. You're not behind. You're right on schedule, and your opportunity is coming. Whether that's to win a championship in tennis, or whether that's to get accepted to your dream college, or an internship that you've been really, really hoping to get. Whatever it is, be patient with yourself. You're not running late. You're right on time. And you just got to allow yourself to cook properly. And when everything aligns, the stage will be ready for you. The stage will be ready for you. And so with that, that is my 3 chapters of creativity lessons that I have for you all. And I do want to open it up if anybody has any questions, any comments. can't really. Questions? Oh, come on. There has to be at least one question out there. Does that mean there's? Yeah. All right. Well, if something just came up, do we? Is that? Is it the bottom? What is your next creative challenge? Oh, Lori, great question. My next creative challenge, I am actually getting ready to launch my own brand. And there's this really cool concept that I'm working with that engages kind of the NFT world and the buying and wearing of really cool clothes. So that's kind of the next thing, I think, is how do you integrate technology and fashion into one way that's really chic and really creative and forward thinking. So I would say that's kind of my next project. Good question. Okay, awesome. And then, yeah, I'm also throwing my Instagram in there just in case anybody wants to follow me and follow my journey, what I'm up to and what I'm doing. And I think there is another question. What can students do if they don't feel like they have art skills? Oh, that's a fabulous question because nobody has art skills. Art skills are learned. They're not inherent. Talent is inherent. Like you're born with talent, but skills are learned. Anybody can learn an art skill. It just takes practice, dedication, and hard work. And I tell you this because when I went to fashion school, I could not draw a hand to save my life. Like, I just could not draw a hand. And every time I did, my professors would say, those hands look like lobsters. And so I practiced. I remember one day drawing 100 hands within an hour, just bam, bam, bam. And then 100 lips, right? 100 lips. And it takes time. So anybody who says, I don't have the skills, it's because you're not putting in the time to acquire the skills. And I really believe that's true of many, many art forms. Art is learned. Good question. I love that question. That was MJ, right? Good job, MJ. Anything else? Other questions? All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I just want to say thank you all for your time. It's been a pleasure to share a little bit about my journey and my creative lessons that I've learned. And I really encourage all of you to go out there and try something new, like take a risk. Even if you don't feel confident that you are fit for that role, right? Whether it's a sport or a project or a job, give yourself space to explore and to really take a risk because you never know whose life you're going to affect because of that down the road. So that's my last bit for you all. Thank you.